Rockin' Robin bleeds, bleeds, bleeds when Black Venus hits her repeatedly. Oh, Rockin' Robin bleeds a bit too much tonight. Bleeds, bleeds, bleeds. I'm John Renton with the Retro Review, LPWA Super Ladies Showdown, the first and to date only pay-per-view from the Ladies Professional Wrestling Association, which kind of makes sense that this pay-per-view didn't go all that well, even though the town certainly did try and there was a lot of effort there. It was in the Mayo Civic Center in Rochester, Minnesota. During a snowstorm, 400 people showed up in a venue that seats 3,000 people, and even though everybody tried, and there were some former AWA talents, Wally Carbo, Aldorosha, and even Nick Bockwinkel, yes, the former AWA World Heavyweight Champion, long-reigning champion that he was providing analysis, and there were a bunch of people on this show, and some people that you may recognize, some people from the past, and even the future Terri, yes, the future stalker of Sable, was in the main event of this show. I will say, in comparison to the recent WoW Unleashed pay-per-view that I reviewed, at least the women took it seriously, worked pretty goddamn hard, and while none of the matches were absolutely standout, they treated it like a goddamn sport. So, a little bit of background on the LPWA, at least as much as I have researched and heard from podcasts. Joe Pedicino, longtime, radio and sports personality who loved wrestling. He had, I believe, a block of wrestling that he did, syndicated shows, and did the wraparounds, and actually met his wife through that, and his wife Bonnie did some backstage interviews on this show. And Joe Pedicino did recently pass away, I think, sometime last year. I don't remember the exact time frame, but he was a hell of a wrestling fan, very passionate and everything, and this LPWA venture was a noble effort, and I'm not talking about like the voiceover in Gauntlet Dark Legacy. No, this was actually a noble effort where they wanted to present women's professional wrestling from all over the world, as serious as they possibly could. And for this pay-per-view venture, Jim Cornette joined commentary. He actually told a story how he did, how he was, brought in for this, and he was asked by Dusty to come back to WCW months after he had left because he didn't want to come back because Jim Herd was still in charge. And Jim Herd has pretty much ruined WCW for quite a while because he was a goddamn idiot. But still a funny line where he was told about the LPWA, and Dusty says, "Oh, you doing the LPGA, Jimmy?" Oh man, I miss Dusty. I miss Dusty so goddamn much. But this was, it was a collection of women. There was a Japanese, women's tournament that was going on with some American wrestlers. It was a little bit weird, but they were trying to establish a whole bunch of championships. And they had a tag team championship, and they had the LPWA World Championship in the main event. So anyway, it was kind of nice that they had the Countdown to Showdown pre-show, because if you search up LPWA Super Ladies Showdown, it will show up, and it's almost 3 hours, but it's like if you can sit down and watch this easily, and it's nice and digestible. It's not perfect, and again, none of the matches are like, oh my god, I gotta rewatch this. But you could tell the effort was there, and that the women were certainly trying. The late 80s, early 90s synth rock intro was just insane. It was hosted by Mick Karch, and Jim Cornette. And this guy Mick, I don't really know much about him. He was fine. He was more like a newscaster. They just said, hey, go talk about this wrestling. What? Okay, I'll try. Just give me some prompts. But Cornette said, call your local cable company. And he did have one funny thing. Pick up a phone. It's America. There's phones all over the place. This is back when you could get on a payphone and everything, because cell phones were still considered prehistoric. Hell, beepers were just coming into play here, and really coming into form. Man, I'm really dating myself there because I remember having all that shit. So anyway, they had some good analysis and showed some, footage of the various matches to hype up for the pay-per-view, presenting it like a sport. This was nice. They even showed some footage, brief footage from All Japan Pro Wrestling, because they had a working relationship with them. And those All Japan Pro Wrestling women, my god, really goddamn tough. We have footage of Rockin' Robin tweet, and Wendy Richter against the Glamour Girls. No, this is not late 80s WWE. It is early 90s LPWA. And footage of Terri Power and Lady X, and that was Terri Power would become Terri, Sable Stalker. Yes, the very same would be in the main event. And actually, I'm kind of wondering why they didn't present her like this, even though it was a number of years later. I don't know what the intro music was supposed to be. I don't know why there were 4 cat statues. Now that was supposed to represent women. I don't know. It was a bit odd. And Joe Pedicino and Jim Cornette welcome us, and then we cut to Mick Karch doing the backstage interviews, which Yeah, you could kind of tell this was just like they made the best they could of like a rec center or whatever it was, because it was like in a hallway and the camera was almost like right up on the guy. It was like so super close, and he just interviewed the various women and stuff like that. And then we yeah, we go cut to Bonnie Blackstone, who's in the suite, and that's Joe Pedicino's wife, and the hospitality suite. I don't know why they called it that. And then we cut to Nick Bockwinkel and Sue Henning. Sue, who was as lively of a Henning as Kurt was after February 10th, 2003. I feel bad for saying that, but seriously, they could have just had Nick Bockwinkel talking about this, because Sue was not very good. I mean, she tried, but Nick Bockwinkel would have been just fine there. Even though I'm sure that he only knew a bit about some of these women, he still would have been better on his own. He would have been better off alone. Do. And then Wally Carbo, man, if Wally Carbo and Paul Bosch ever did a show together, they would have needed widescreen just for their ears alone. So anyway, Aldorosha, he looked totally lost. Totally lost. He was like a backstage guy for AWA. I can't remember if he was a producer or what it was. And then when Aldorosha was in school, they didn't have history. His social security number is 1, a line from Cornette. And this took a while. We get a parade of wrestlers coming out for the national anthem, and the Japanese women probably had to be saying what the actual shit is going on here. And then we cut back to Nick and Sue. They kept cutting. What they would do is they would have a match, then they would cut backstage to Mick Karch doing the backstage interviews, and then they would have Nick Bockwinkel and Sue, not so lively Henning, talking about the various matches. So then we get Allison Roy and Lisa Stevens versus Mani Katamura and Miki Hideo. I apologize if I screw up any of these goddamn names, as I'm terrible with names. So much generic music. Lisa was huge, just towered over everybody. Towered over, almost the goddamn spotlights. They definitely tried. There was some good, good clubbing blows and everything, and some decent stuff, and then a power slam off the ropes, and Allison got pinned. Okay, there we go. Let's move on from that. So, do I know much about these women? No, I really don't know a lot about them, so I apologize. If you know anything about these Japanese women, please sound off in the comments, please. And then Denise Storm gets interviewed about the next match. It's Dangerous Denise Storm versus Susan Green. Susan Green sounds like she should be selling Mary Kay out on a goddamn sidewalk. And just the name alone, it's the first round match in the LPWA Japanese Women's Tournament. Despite the fact that neither of these women are Japanese. I guess they were just trying to fill the shit out, and they go, okay, it could be America versus Japanese. Australia, America, Australia, America. No. Good clubbing blows, nice. We get a post spot at one point. Joe Pedicino did call it a steel metal pole. What other kind of steel would there be other than metal? And Storm is a clear heel. So Denise kept checking her boot. What the hell is going on? Why is Storm checking her boot? Oh no, she had a chain in there. There's a chain in my boot. And she gets a victory, despite the fact the referee didn't see. There were a few too many ref bumps here. I could have done without. I mean, there weren't nearly as many as there were in the WoW pay-per-view. And then Bonnie Blackstone interviews Reggie Bennett. Yes, if you remember the very first ECW pay-per-view, Barely Legal, and the bigger woman with the black hair that did a power bomb that almost practically killed, they killed the opponent doing that. If you remember somebody botching something like that, that was Reggie Bennett. Reggie Bennett was a lot younger here and got to be the bigger woman against some smaller women, and was dressed as a weird construction worker for some reason. Then Reggie took on Yukari Osawa, and it was another first round match. And I don't again know why Reggie was dressed as a construction worker, but she knew the Japanese women, had studied them, would actually work, I believe, in All Japan a little bit after this. And Cornette knocks the U.S. fans for just basically, cheering the U.S. Oh, it's not like that in Japan. They appreciate everything. So then Reggie used her power and then eventually got, some kind of weird twist slam 1, 2, 3. So Reggie advanced. And then we get more, analysis and stuff like that. And we get Shinobu Kadori and versus Desiree Petrosa. Again, apologize for screwing up some of these names since I'm not familiar with them. I tend to do that. First round match, and it was Denmark versus Japan. Tale as old as time? I don't remember them ever facing off. But nope, something was clogged up in this match. Wait, that's Holland. I'm sorry, I don't know my geography very well. It's a jump start. We get some rest holds. We get some eye raking. We get a snap bomb. And Shinobu gets the victory. Okay, almost said Shinobi because I'm a video game nerd, at least from back then. And Bonnie interviews Denise about, oh, you're going to face Reggie, and I'm going to take her down. Da, da, da. And then we get Harley Saito, who gets featured a lot on the show, versus Mizuki Gatoi. And man, these names. I really should just come up with nicknames, but I wanted to try to do the best, and I'm butchering them horribly. Another first round match. The last first round match, I believe. So the two Japanese women tangling up in each other and everything. We get some nice leg scissoring, which is always nice to see in a women's match. We get a bridge, pin, some really, really nice work here. And Boston Grab, we get a tombstone variation, which was almost like a sit out, almost like she splashed her out. 1, 2, 3, and there you go. That's your lot. Then make interviews, Eagle Sawai, which she didn't know much English. Good job there. They should have just gotten one of the other Japanese women to interview her. I don't know why they fucking didn't. And Eddie Sharkey was the ref. Yes, the guy that trained the Road Warriors was the referee. He was one of the referees. There was another guy, too. I don't know what his name was. It's not important. So Eagle Sawaya took on Midori Saito. Now, I'm sorry. This is the last first-round match. I apologize. A lot of matches on this thing. Quick start. Eagle used her size. She had a lot of size over anybody that wasn't named Reggie Bennett in this. And keeps beating her up for a bit. Gets a half crab. And then some weird kind. It was almost like a, gourd buster slam, 1, 2, 3. So that was pretty good stuff. And then she jaw jacks with the fans and kicks the guardrail at one of them. And then Mick interviews, Black Venus. I'm your Venus. I'm your fire. Here's Boogaloo Desire. Boogaloo Brown. It's funny. They made the managers here, put the women at the forefront. That was nice. So we get Black Venus versus Electric Boogaloo Brown against Rockin' Robin Tweet Tweet Tweet. And yes, the very same Rockin' Robin that was on the recent Dark Side of the Ring episode. In the Shadow of Grizzly Smith. Check out my review of that if you want to know how I felt. So, Jumpstart. This was nice because it was basically just a brawl. Like, seriously, I think these women brawled pretty much for like about 200% of the match. Robin ends up bleeding at one point, and then there was an electric chair variation sometime after, in about 5.5 minutes, 1, 2, 3. So that was fun. And since they were right near the Mayo Clinic, she could go get her, head stitched up right there. I think that's how the Mayo Clinic works. So anyway, Mick then interviews Reggie Bennett about the upcoming match with Denise. And it's Dangerous Denise Storm versus Reggie Bennett. And this is Power versus Denise being the heel and da-da-da-da-da. And Reggie clubbing her down, everything. Denise fighting, begging off and stuff like that. And we get a ref bump. And then we got a chair. Eddie doesn't see her use the chair. He sees Reggie swing the chair at the turnbuckle, not hitting Denise, and disqualifies her. That was when the crowd started chanting. They didn't chant bullshit because there weren't enough people there to chant bullshit because 400 people in a 3,000-seat rec center. But that was a way to get Reggie, to not get pinned and Denise to get into the finals. And then Harley Saito took on Eagle Sawai in a speed versus power match. And Sawai kept targeting the leg a lot. But it was good psychology. And then also, a lot of leg targeting. And then Saito comes back with some strikes and some good kicks, and we end up getting a draw. But then Wally Carbo basically picking up that the fans, in there, and in arenas watching all of the, because they clearly closed-circuited this thing. Nope, his ears picked up that they wanted to do a point system. Basically, if any match went to 10 minutes, then it was a draw, and it would be based on points. Okay. None of the matches had gone close to 10 minutes before that. They had always ended by 50 or something like that. So it wasn't like, 5, 4, 3, and somebody wins. He awards it to Saito. Okay, cool. So we're getting Saito versus Denise Storm in the finals. And then we get Bonnie interviewing Brad Reagans, who had the personality of a wet, diseased clam. And I'm sorry to say that because he's a tremendous wrestler, great Olympian, and worked well, training various people, and he was great in the AWA, even when the AWA wasn't that great. But promos were not his fucking thing. I don't know, maybe that hair prevented him from being able to understand any words. So then Mick interviews the Glamour Girls. Yes, the Glamour Girls were dug up and put on this show. Well, that's unfair. They actually still had something left. They defended the tag team championships against Bambi and Malaya Hosoka. Hosoka, my apologies, LPWA Tag Team Championship match. Glamour Girls came out to a variation of Pomp and Circumstance. It sounded like it was recorded in 1855. And then Hosoka had a bad knee that's going to factor in a little bit later. The pace was nice. There was an alley-oop on Bambi and everything, and there was some good stuff. Man, Thumper was all pissed when Bambi got tossed. Then we get a powerbomb and a switcheroo from the Glamour Girls, because it's not like, all blondes don't look alike, despite what, my past with my exes would indicate. And it was 1, 2, 3. Glamour Girls retained the Tag Team Championships. All right, there we go. So we then get Denise Storm against Harley Saito, and Harley Saito wins after a lot of rest holds. And then a bridge pin, beautiful bridge pin, by the way. She gets a victory, gets a trophy. I don't know where the title went, but she won the championship, which is a trophy. Would have been better off just making a $100 championship or whatever, because all the championships were really fucking small. And then Terri Power, yes, yes, the same Tori, took on Lady X, who she'd been chasing for a while. Lady X was in a mask. And oh no, who could beat Lady X? And she kept beating her up and tossing her to the guardrail and tossing her down, everything, slamming her on the floor. But Terri would not be denied. Even though the mask got loaded like, the assassin used to do, the assassins. A lot of people with masks used to do that. She tried for something, tried for a headbutt. Terri was supposed to move, but didn't quite move. And kind of got hit on the shoulder, but just had to no-sell it. And got a crossbody 1, 2, 3. And then the pay-per-view cuts out because we got a new champion. And oh shit, we got no time left. That's pretty much it right there. Now, granted, since we had the pre-show, I'm imagining they had a 2.5 hour block cleared, so it was like 2 hours and 26 minutes, and they had that cleared, and they had to go home. So, it was fine for what it was. I'm not going to necessarily say it was great, but it is what it is. So let me know your thoughts in the comment. Do you remember anything about the LPWA? Because I sure don't, as evident by me butchering all the names. Agree, disagree what I said? Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Ritlin. I'll see you soon.